Okay. Hello, everybody. Now we will start our official part of the stream where we talk about the news. Fuck around, find out, Emily. I have some news I am so interested in talking about today. I want to show you guys, actually, before we start the news, that I added a section to our entry left-wing reading list that I thought everybody might find useful. Let me get this pulled up for you. So here I added, at the end, selected quotations on often discussed concepts for baby leftists. So you guys might like this on what Marxism is. We have a good little summary from Engels. Kubashi banned microplastics. Chaos in the chat today. So here we have a good little just summary of a quote. And Engels is like, Marx came up with the sole basis of the proposition, which is every historical epoch, the prevailing mode of economic production and exchange, and the social organization necessarily following from it, from the basis upon which it is built up, and from that which alone can be explained, the political and intellectual history of that epoch, that consequently the whole of history of mankind has been the history of class struggles, contests between exploiting and exploited, ruling and oppressed classes, that the history of these class struggles forms a series of evolutions in which nowadays a stage has been reached where the exploited and the oppressed class, the proletariat, cannot attain its emancipation from the sway of the exploiting and ruling class, the bourgeoisie, without at the same time once for all emancipating society at large from exploitation, oppression, class distinction, and class struggles. That is Engels' summary of Marx's core thesis, and I added that in there, right? Okay. So then I have on the role of the state and centralization, all in here for us if you're talking to anybody. This is in the entry level left wing communism thing. What is does anybody remember the key command for that? So this is, the proletariat will use its political supremacy to wrest by degree all capital from the bourgeoisie, to centralize all instruments of production into the hands of the state, i.e. of the proletariat organized as a ruling class, and to increase the total productive forces as rapidly as possible. Yeah, this is the ABCs of communism. While the merely repressive organs of the old government power were to be amputated, its legitimate functions were to be wrested from an authority usurping preeminence over society itself and restored to the responsible agents of society. I'm just reading these little quotes for us all. The proletariat will find itself forced to concentrate increasingly in the hands of the state all capital, all agriculture, all transport, all trade. All measures will become practicable and feasible, capable of producing their centralizing effects, to precisely the degree that the proletariat through its labor multiplies the country's productive forces. It is generally the fate of completely new historical creations to be mistaken for the counterparts of older and even defunct forms of social life to which they may bear a certain likeness. The communal constitution has been mistaken for an attempt to break up into the federation of small states. The antagonism of the commune against the state power has been mistaken for an exaggerated form of ancient struggle against over-centralization. Since the state is merely a transitional institution of which use is made in the struggle, in the revolution to keep down one's enemies by force, it is utter nonsense to speak of a free people state. So long as the proletariat still makes use of the state, it makes use of it, not for the purpose of freedom, but of keeping down its enemies, and as soon as there can be any question of freedom, the state as such ceases to exist. So this basically just like, hey, as long as you have political enemies trying to overthrow you, you're in the revolution. The revolution's still ongoing, right? People think of revolutions too, I think, as a day, a week, a couple months. No. As long as people are still plotting on your downfall, you're still in a revolution. The USSR was still in a revolution in the 80s. And look what happened. They acted like they weren't. And now no USSR. Right? So that's what we got to remember. So these are quotes that are entry-level kind of basic quotations from Marx and Engels and Lenin on often discussed concepts when you're new. This is in my entry to left-wing politics reading list. So when you're new and getting into communism, you'll hear people talk about these things. You'll hear them say that Marx didn't want a state or that centralization was bad. None of the text really supports that, though. So that's what these texts are for. So you can really understand what Marx and Engels said about these key concepts before you have the time to read all of the text all at once. What is the link for this? What is the one for the entry level one? Do we know? Yeah, Engels, Marx, Lenin, Commie, ABCs. Yes. I have a section here on the transition into socialism. Between capitalist and communist society, there lies the period of the revolutionary transformation of the one into the other. Corresponding to this is also a political transition period in which the state can be nothing but the revolutionary dictatorship of the proletariat. Yeah, it's all in the link tree. Every step of real movement is more important than a dozen programs. I like that one as well. The working class have no ready-made utopias. They know that in order to work out their own emancipation, they will have to pass through long struggles, through a series of historic processes, transforming circumstances and men. What we have to deal with here is a communist society, not as it is developed on its own foundations, but on the contrary, just as it emerges from capitalist society, which is thus in every respect, economically, morally, and intellectually, still stamped with the birthmarks of the old society from whose womb it emerges. Defects are inevitable in the first phase of communist society, as it is when it has just emerged after prolonged birth pangs from capitalism society. It is impossible, of course, to carry out all of these measures at once. What does the word transition mean? Does it not mean, as applied to an economy, that the present system contains elements, particles, fragments of both capitalism and socialism? Everyone will admit that it does. Let us enumerate these elements. Patriarchal peasant farming, small commodity production. This includes the majority of peasants who still sell their grain, private capitalism, state capitalism, socialism. Socialism is inconceivable without large-scale capitalist engineering based on the latest discoveries of modern science. It is inconceivable without planned state organization, which keeps tens of millions of people to the strictest observance of a unified standard in production and distribution. We Marxists have always spoken of this, and it is not worthwhile wasting 2 seconds talking to people who do not understand even this. Anarchists and a good half of the left socialist revolutionaries. Isn't it paradoxical that private capital should be helping socialism? Not at all. It is indeed an irrefutable economic fact that there is a possibility of assisting socialism by means of private capitalism, not to speak of state capitalism. So, sorry, I'm just reading through these. We're almost done, just so you guys have these. The practical application of the principles will depend, as the manifesto itself states, everywhere and all times on the historical conditions for the time being existing. And however much that state of things may have altered during the last 25 years, the general principles laid down in the manifesto are, on the whole, as correct today as ever. So for those weird conspiracy theorists who want to tell you that Marx and Engels changed their mind on things, they didn't. So that is it. Would I rather be in control of South Korea for a day? South Korea for a day. I would love it. That is it. That's what's going on there. I added that to our entry-level reading list. Good resource point if you're looking to pull up quotes when talking to baby leftists or the left comms who don't know what's going on. So wanted to share that update. You can find that in the entry-level reading list. Now, let's get into the news. I have one recommendation for the news today. I have to find a story on it, but it is on the Prairieville? I thought it was in Texas. Yeah, Prairieville, Texas sentencing. Using Emily as a slur. Yeah, this is what I wanted to talk about. So I've got some articles on it. This is my recommendation. So I'm going to take 4 from the chat today. I'm going to explain how it goes. You think we should just go? No vote? I feel like we should do a vote still. So here's my rec. Antifa cell members convicted in Prairieland ICE detention center shooting. It's pretty crazy, actually. It's a pretty insane thing that we should talk about. The United States cracking down on left-wing politics here. But yeah, I know some of you aren't American. You might want to talk about something else. So the way that the voting period is going to work is this. I'm going to tell you when. I'm going to cut it, do a countdown, like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 style, and then you'll be able to submit any articles you would like to suggest to talk about today on the stream. Please, we'll take the top 4 that come. Please make sure they are current articles, ideally within the past week or so. 2 weeks is okay. And please make sure that they are mostly text, not videos, and we'll vote on them from there. So, 5, 4, no, oh, did you guys, I think we should do the news and do finish Ukraine stuff next Tuesday. Keep it on Tuesdays. Yeah, we'll do it on Tuesdays. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Drop your links. Drop your links or you're LaSalle. And cake. Okay, let's see what we got here. We've got arrested protesters devastated after appeal. Okay, so this is the UK cracking down on Palestine protesters. We have Supreme Court and Cisco helped China pursue Falun Gong. Fuck, this one's so good. Okay. And then we have ICE removed detainee protections after private outreach from top contractor. Whoa. Bonus, forced labor hypocrisy. We got that. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. And then, that's okay. The Guardian is my favorite lip slap. don't know if you guys know that. My favorite conservative slop, Republic slop, is Council for Foreign Relations. And my favorite lib slop is The Guardian. Yeah. Okay. Whoa. Hold on. I'm moving this. Okay. China during the news poll? Yes, tiniest boob. Yes. The Atlantic is your favorite lip slop? You gotta have your own. Yeah, everybody's gotta have their favorite. Oh, wow. This is beautiful. I love it. All right. And then we have one more. Here we go. SCOTUS blog. Supreme Court rules for ExxonMobil and Cuban confiscation. How did I know they do that? The U.S. court ruled in favor of ExxonMobil instead of in favor of Cuba? Shocking. Okay. If you like the BBC, just give me the message you want me to believe with no further elaboration, please. It's true, the BBC, all the articles are really short. That is really true, isn't it? It's pretty wild. Okay. So here are 5. Does anybody in the chat want to do a poll, or should I do it? I don't mind doing a poll. I can do the poll. Should I do it? I'll do it. I'm going to start a poll for us. Look at me. Big streamer doing my own polls. Okay. Vote or gulag chat. I'm doing it. The Prairieland, we'll say Antifa sentencing. This is very concerning, the Antifa sentencing for the Americans, because we're all Antifa. Every American who's not MAGA is Antifa, according to the U.S. government. It's not, it's not a real thing. So that's why I'm like, this is interesting, because they can do this to any of us. God, these are some pretty good. The Cisco versus Falun Gong story. Okay. We're doing no additional votes allowed. I'm doing we'll do a 5-minute poll. Fuck it, we'll do a 5-minute poll. And it's starting now. Okay, so it's at the top of your chat. Refresh if you don't see it. We have a poll video from Carr, and we have a poll article submitted as well. Who submitted this? Somebody I know and like submitted this. Tiniest boob, that's him. I like you all, though. Here's the Carr video. It's the Onion.
This is the Onion News Network. Not watching is an act of defiance.
Well, tensions with North Korea continued to mount today after the rogue nation destroyed the entire continent of Asia in a move analysts say could affect the diplomatic climate in the region. According to the Pentagon, the impact of detonating nuclear weapons across the continent on the already strained relations between North Korea and the rest of Asia remains to be seen.
We strongly condemn North Korea's decision to murder 4 billion innocent people. The president has stated that he is personally disappointed and will bring this issue up with the surviving members of the G8 at their next conference.
Expunging 95% of life from the Asian continent is a clear rejection of the six-party talks that Secretary of State Hillary Clinton recently proposed. Chinese President Hu Jintao has yet to speak out about the attack, continuing a long pattern of his nation's inaction toward North Korean saber-rattling. Further complicating things are North Korea's ambiguous statements to the Western media.
우리 조선인민공화국은 아시아를 무너뜨렸습니다.
We have now destroyed Asia.
이제 이번 목요일은 유럽을 그리고
Europe is next, with missiles to be launched this coming Thursday, then North and South America in April.
It's been reported that North Korea still possesses dozens more nuclear warheads, something that will certainly come up when the UN Security Council meets next month.
Sorry, I was muted again. The funny thing is that could just be a real American news story. Like, it's not that different. It's not that different from what we do say. It's pretty real. It's pretty real. huge American news story. Also funny is like, okay, we like the Onion, but obviously they're not fucking communists. Kim Jong-un's job is basically Minister of Defense. That's basically his job. Yeah, it sounds like RFA reporting unironically. Yeah, barely even a parody. Okay, let's read this China Daily article while we wait for the poll. We're halfway through the poll. What's winning? Antifa sentencing and Cisco versus Falun Gong. I'm interested in both of these. Very, very tough to decide. So this is from China Daily. 7 years ago, international environmental experts studying the wind-scoured plains of Yoyu County in North China's Shaanxi province reached a bleak conclusion. The area was entirely uninhabitable, and the total resettlement of its population was the only viable option. Whipped by brutal Siberian winds, blinding sandstorms routinely choked the air, burying entire villages under shifting desert dunes. Today, the same desolate wasteland has been transformed into a lush green oasis. This historic environmental reversal was globally spotlighted when in 2024, Yaoyu County clinched the prestigious New Sustainable Cities and Human Settlements Award at the United Nations headquarters in New York, recognized as a premier global blueprint for desertification control. This Cisco is not the foods, by the way. It's like technology systems, I think. They had buildings all over Fresno. That's why I know what they are. And we used to watch fireworks from the Cisco building every year. So how did they do this? What did they do here? So it was a multi-generational epic of political discipline and human endurance that began in 1949 with Zhang Rangwai, Yaoyu's first party secretary. He understood a simple truth. If Yaoyu wants prosperity, we must stop the wind in the sand. And to stop the wind and sand, we must plant more trees. He initiated a series of patriotic tree planting campaigns, rallying the people to action. The first sapling, a Chinese cottonwood, was planted just outside the old county town gate, a defiant flag planted in the face of the encroaching desert. However, the bitter winters and scorching summers made tree planting a constant battle. In the 1960s, the 4th and 5th County Party secretaries focused their efforts on the Huangshawa Sand Depression, a particularly challenging area. Their initial attempts resulted in heartbreak, with over 90,000 saplings failing to survive because the non-native poplars planted drank too much water and died. But they learned from their mistakes, adapting their planting methods and persevering. By 1964, they had successfully planted more than 13,333 hectares, effectively stabilizing the shifting dunes. Each subsequent leader built upon the work of their predecessors. Okay, Antifa sentencing and then Cisco Falun Gong. If we have time, we'll do that in that order. And then what was third? In case we have time, UK versus balance. Okay, got it. So, by 1970s, tree species like pitch pine, larch, and Mongolian Scott pines were introduced as part of the 3 North Shelter Belt Forest Program, expanding the afforestation area to over 73,000 hectares. Wow. Okay, so basically they've been doing this here. Let's look at the Yaoyu before and after. Oh, here. This is wild. Look at this. Can you guys see this? Before and after pictures of Yaoyu County. Any moment for the Virgo raid. Isn't that so cool? This is crazy. Amazing. The before picture. I don't know when this was. Let me see. It just says before and after. Probably 1949 based on this article. Somewhere around then. Yeah. Gay bombs. Yay! The Virgo Raiders are here. Yay. Hello, everybody. Welcome. You're just in time. We just learned about this de-desertification program that China has successfully enacted in the Yaoyu province. Look at it. Oh, you read Kollontai. Oh, cool. Nice. Fun. Hello. Yes. The horse element of the desertification have been written. No, you were talking about this. Let's see. China, horse, desert. Oh, it worked. It got me there. Why can't people on the internet search for things? They're always asking me, where did this come from? And I'm like, I'm searching wild terms and things are coming up. Okay, China successfully reintroduced the world's last wild horses? Oh my god, they're so cute. What the fuck? this is so cute. I love them. 1978. Look at it! He's running out of there. He's leaping out. Look at him go. He's like, I'm getting out of here. Wow. Aww. I'm afraid of horses. Fun fact about me. They frighten me. They're very large. My ex, though, used to work with horses and was like, they're just giant dogs. They're just like big dogs. And I was like, I don't know about that. I respect and fear a horse. Like I respect and fear the ocean. But that was cute. I think they're cute. I just know they could kill me if they want. What's up with... Wait, let's talk about this guy. Let's talk about this guy's drip, though. What year was this? 1970s? Where's he now? 1986. Here I was born. He's a little old for me. This outfit, though, it's doing something for me, I gotta tell you. This is a good-looking outfit. You know what? This guy, too, kinda. They're kinda killing it. These outfits are killing it. Fuck. Okay. All right. Let's get into the news, everybody. So what won our poll today is Antifa cell members convicted in Prairieland ICE detention center shooting. We have two articles about this. We have a news slop, and then we have the Department of Justice's statement about this. And this is here in the United States, and it's pretty fucking scary. So, how do I get rid of... Why are you so big? You're way too big. I don't like it. Get out of here. Yes. Okay. 8 convicted in Texas immigration center shooting and protest are sentenced to decades in prison. This is a pretty wild story. So a former U.S. Marine reservist and 7 others were sentenced Tuesday to decades in prison over a shooting last year that wounded a police officer during a demonstration at a Texas immigration detention center. Prosecutors called the crime an act of terrorism and said the 8 were linked to the leftist militant group ANTIFA. The defendants' attorneys denied any Antifa ties, and family members expressed shock and anger over the stiff sentences. So, this is what's going on here in the United States. So, yeah, the backstory on this is that there was a protest, an anti-ICE demonstration. One guy at the protest, shot out into a crowd from the woods and hit a police officer, wounding him. But it wasn't like a shootout. It wasn't like a whole thing. And it was just a protest. Not everybody even knew that guy that was there. So the 8 people who were picked up, they weren't even all necessarily connected to each other outside of the fact that they just been at the same protest. So this means if you go to a protest and somebody at the protest in the United States does something, they can now say, you're all in the same organization. You all know each other, even if we can't find evidence you do. And you're all in Antifa. And Antifa is the organization. As we all know, Antifa just means anti-fascist. There's no, out in the United States, it's not any different than where you live. There's not, maybe you guys actually have Antifa organizations. We don't have any. Antifa's not an org. Antifa's not a thing. It's not an organization. It's not a real group. So the United States government is now able to say everybody they don't like is Antifa, and Antifa is a real org, and it's also a domestic terrorist organization now. And now they can just get basically anyone with left-wing politics, they can say you're Antifa, and you can, basically be called a domestic terrorist now. Yeah, so it's like, we would just all be called Antifa. It's not a real thing, but they try to make it sound like it's a real thing. And they've been setting this up for a long time. We've watched them try to set this up for a long time. They're trying to make... So the average American, like a baby boomer-aged American living in the middle of the country, probably thinks Antifa is a real organization, like an actual org of some kind, right? So I think, though, too, my concern is that you guys have seen the federal government being super weird to Code Pink, PSL, and Cheerla. I think they're trying to set it up where, these orgs are Antifa or something like that. I think that's going to be their next step. Yeah. So that's kind of what they're trying to do here. So Benjamin Song, the Marine reservist who was convicted of opening fire during the July 4th demonstration outside of the Prairieland Detention Center near Dallas, was sentenced to 100 years in prison, the maximum punishment. The 7 others sentenced in Fort Worth courtrooms received prison terms ranging from 30 to 70 years. Now, this guy, 100 years in prison for shooting a cop, not ideal. Also, I'm not surprised by that, right? If this was just a news story, a guy shot a cop and he got 100 years in prison, yeah, I guess I would kind of expect that in the United States, right? But the part that people are really shocked about is these other people, which is the 7 people sentenced in Fort Worth courtrooms who received prison terms ranging from 30 to 70 years and what they did to get these sentences. Now, these sentences are where people are like, this is fucking crazy. This is a lot. So, Lydia Koza, whose wife Autumn Hill was sentenced to 50 years in prison, says, I am livid. The government wants to take away her entire life because she attended a protest. Nobody died. And this is true. And this is where this gets weird. And I'm not sure how much they'll talk about this in here, but we'll see. U.S. District Judge Reed O'Connor, one of the 2 judges overseeing the proceedings, said what happened wasn't a protest, but an assault on democracy. All but one of the 8 defendants sentenced Tuesday were convicted on terrorism charges. The need to deter this type of conduct is high, O'Connor said. Now, he's saying the quiet part out loud. The need to deter this type of conduct is high. What type of conduct? Attending a protest. Here in the United States, that's supposed to be something that's legally guaranteed to us. Our Second Amendment right is our right to carry guns, right? Not to shoot a cop, I guess. That's fine, whatever. But, our right to protest, that's protected in our First Amendment rights. That's part of our Constitution. We're supposed to be allowed to go to a protest. So when the judge here, Judge Reed O'Connor, is saying this, he's going mask off. He's just saying it. And this is the thing about the Trump administration. They don't give a fuck. They're just going to say it to your face. The need to deter this type of conduct is high. What type of conduct? Going to a protest. Going to a protest. Exercising your First Amendment rights. The case drew attention beyond Texas as critics warned it would have wide-reaching impact on protest and First Amendment free speech rights. And now, so the way the American court system works is that this is now a precedent. So now other people can be arrested for being at protests because they have a legal precedent. And so basically the way our court system works is not what's right or wrong. It's what legally makes sense. So now anybody who wants to basically prosecute somebody for having gone to a protest, they can go to court and they can be like, well, we see that based on this ruling we have from 2026 in Prairieville, Judge Reed O'Connor, we have a precedent established in American law saying that if you're at a protest and something like this happens, like you're capable, you're culpable or whatever. So now it's established as a legal protest that future cases would be able to refer back to, and this is how our legal system works. So this is a big deal. So yeah, Judge O'Connor's a psychopath. We'll look him up too. I didn't look this guy up yet. Let's look up this psycho. Okay, we'll get to him. So the case drew attention beyond Texas as critics warned it would have wide-reaching impact on protests and First Amendment free speech rights. That's why, because it's not just about that case. It's now the basis that anybody can use for future cases. The Justice Department called it the first sentencing of defendants affiliated with ANTIFA. And again, this article is not telling you Antifa is made up. That's not real. There's no such thing as Antifa. This is after President Donald Trump last fall signed an executive order designating it as a domestic terrorist organization. Antifa does not exist in the United States. It is not an organization. It is not real. It is a graphic people post on their Instagrams to say they don't like fascism, right? So Donald Trump was setting this up. They know it's not a real fucking organization. It doesn't matter. By creating it as a fake organization, saying it's real and saying it's domestic terrorism, they can't prove you're not in it because it doesn't exist, right? They can't prove you're not in Antifa. They can say anybody's in Antifa now. So we knew this was going to happen. This is not new to us. We knew the second Donald Trump was designating Antifa a terrorist organization, we knew what was going to happen. Okay, every leftist is now a terrorist, according to the United States government, right? So this is why any good left-wing organization that's carrying its weight has been very, very, very strict on security protocols since then. Right? We're trying not to get all of our people locked up in this fake designation of Antifa org that's not real. So Trump issued the order even though, they do say it. Good job, K-Row 7. There is no domestic equivalent to the State Department's list of foreign terror organizations. Antifa is not a single organization, but rather an umbrella term for far-left militant groups that confront or resist neo-Nazis and white supremacists at demonstrations. That's it. And that's actually a pretty good description. It's not even an umbrella term used by the people, though. It's used by the government. Hero 7 is an L. I watch it every day. I'm sure it is an L. But I'm proud of them for even saying this, because a lot of news orgs won't. The sentences handed down today make it clear that Antifa terrorists who attack law enforcement and federal facilities will face swift and uncompromising justice. Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche said in a statement. Again, Antifa is not a thing. Prosecutors told jurors during the trial that the group's actions, including bringing firearms, first aid kits, and wearing body armor, were signals of nefarious intent. I mean, do you have Second Amendment rights in the United States or not? And this is what we tell people. If bringing a firearm with you out in public in Texas is considered a signal of nefarious intent, you do not have the right to bear arms. Antifa groupie. Antifa? Yep. So this is like also something that even conservatives should be mad about in the United States. They love their 2A rights. But if just having a gun means that the government can say you have nefarious intent, you have intent to harm them, the government, then you don't have Second Amendment rights. And this is just a point. This is just true. Attorneys for the defendants have said there was no planned ambush and that protesters who brought firearms did so only for their own protection. They argued the gathering was planned as a late-night demonstration with fireworks to show support for immigrants being held at Prairieland before gunshots broke out. Prosecutors have said Song yelled, "Go get the rifles," and opened fire, striking a police officer who just pulled up to the center. Yeah, exactly, Mallard says. You're only allowed to have a firearm when you're manning a polling place for purposes of security. Yeah, and this is true, actually. Ban Shen says, conservatives think that the infringements on your 2A rights only count for conservatives, so they don't care. But they don't realize it counts for them the second they have an opinion that the federal government doesn't have. Yes, Rogue Hunter says they love Second Amendment rights until it's the Black Panther Party, and that's exactly true. Here in California, as soon as the Black Panther Party started open carrying, the conservatives, the Republicans, are the ones who fought to change that law. The NRA actually campaigned here for gun control when that started happening. They're telling you who they want to be able to carry guns, white racists, and that's it. Yes. Virgo leaf? Did we lose Virgo? Guardian Angel Virgo. This is a bunch of kids. Okay, wait. So Philip Hayes, Song's attorney, rejected characterizations that the protesters were extremists, said his client will appeal the 100-year sentence. This is a bunch of kids and young adults who have a really big heart and really wanted their voice to be heard, he said. It was never intended for anybody to get hurt. It was never intended that any shots would be fired. Prosecutor Frank Gatto urged the judge to impose stiff penalties, though. People with that kind of extremist belief need extra time in prison, Gatto said. They believe violence is justified. Defendants and their family members pleaded for leniency. Autumn Hill said the gathering seemed more like a party to me than anything else, and she and others who participated did not expect or want any violence or destruction of property to occur. Hill's attorney, Cody Kofer, told the judge there was no evidence she had a gun, nor that she believed in violence to achieve change. He said that after fireworks were set off, she was so conscientious that she made sure to pick up the trash left behind before leaving. Chris Tolbert, defendant Savannah Batten's attorney, said his client didn't bring a firearm, spray paint, or fireworks to the center, nor did she participate in the planning of the demonstration. Hill and Batten, though, both received 50-year sentences, literally just for going to a protest. Now, I also want you to think about this. Think about how the United States government moves in other countries. When we want to stage a coup, what do? We set up a protest kind of environment, and then we have somebody fire shots. One of our guys fire shots into the crowd, right? So basically the precedent being established here, if we know anything, can learn anything about American domestic policy from American foreign policy, is now the government can plant a guy at any protest, fire shots, and then say, well, look, it's those violent Antifa demonstrators were firing shots, and now everybody at that protest can be arrested on terrorism charges. So that's my anticipation of how this will be utilized against people domestically, because that's what they do in other countries. So probably, I would guess, this is something we can expect to start to happen here. Yeah, they're using them as examples. Exactly. So this is the crazier one. Another defendant, Daniel Sanchez Estrada, was not even at the protest the night of the shooting, was not involved in the planning of the protest, and he is married to one of the other defendants. He was convicted on charges of concealing documents. Why? He moved a box of his own belongings, artwork, poetry, journals, and magazines after the shooting. Nothing in the box was illegal. He was sentenced to 30 years in prison. 30 years in prison. Other defendants previously pleaded guilty to providing material support to terrorists rather than take their case to trial. Federal prosecutors charged 15 people last week with impeding the Trump administration's immigration crackdown in Minnesota. They claimed the demonstrators were members of ANTIFA who conspired against the federal government to block arrests and deportations by setting up blockades around government buildings and throwing chunks of ice at federal vehicles. Kairos Rav, rating with Party of 29. Okay. Hello. Welcome. We're talking about the Prairieland sentencing. Hello. Hi. So, this guy who got sentenced for 30 years in prison, think about the way they talk about DPRK. Think about the way they talk about North Korea. What do they tell you? If you get accused of your crime, 3 generations of your family can be locked up in prison. We don't actually have evidence that that's true. But we know here in the United States that if you are at a location where someone else commits a crime, you can be sentenced to 50 years in prison. And if you're married to someone who's at a location where someone else commits a crime, you can be sentenced to 30 years in prison just for that. Right? You caught Ome stream? Ome streaming? We gotta get Ome in Tank Tube. I love Ome. Yeah, this is actually a good strategic point. If every protester is getting arrested just for existing, why would they bother staying peaceful? Interesting point of consideration. On Monday, it was so good. Oh, so cool. Yeah. I have Ome on my page, the link to Ome stream thing. Oh, okay, cool. Yay, ambassador. Yay. Okay. So, yeah. Basically, this is... welcome, Kairos Rev Raiders. Thank you. I don't think I follow. I'm going to follow. So, yeah, this is what's going on here and this precedent that's being established. Now, the judge... We got the Federalist Society on the judge. Hold on. Reed O'Connor. This is the judge. So, he got his bachelor's degree in 1986. And he has been a part of the Federalist Society, which is obviously extremely right-wing. He is the right's favorite district court judge, delivering for Trump's anti-trans agenda. So he hates the gays as well, very obviously. And this is this judge who's taking a look at this, right? The guy who ruled this. He granted a petition ordering a hospital to provide all records responsive to requests in this anti-trans case for the subpoena within 14 days. And this was a request filed by the DOJ, a subpoena of Rhode Island Hospital as part of an investigation about trans healthcare. Very, very wild. This is their guy. This is their guy. So here is what the DOJ had to say about this. Antifa cell members, right? Again, they're trying to make it sound like it's a real organization. Antifa cell members convicted in Prairieland ICE detention center shooting. 9 North Texas Antifa cell operatives were convicted today by a federal jury in Fort Worth, Texas, for their roles in rioting, using weapons and explosives, providing material support to terrorists, obstruction, and attempted murder of an Alvarado police officer at the Prairieland ICE detention center on 4th of July, 2025. Now, I also want people to really understand this. We are watching the U.S. government invent a fake terrorist organization to justify cracking down on people's human rights, doing political oppression against them in real time, all right? We're witnessing it happen. So what makes you think the U.S. government is telling you the truth about anything we're doing in other countries? This is what they are doing here. You know it's a lie. You see it with your own eyes. This is how we are getting information and the news about what's happening in other countries around the world constantly. They invented a whole fucking fake terrorist organization that does not exist, right? They invented it. It does not exist. It is not real. Think about all of the things you've been told exist in all of these other countries that are our political enemies around the globe. All of these different organizations, etc., that supposedly exist that are there. It's made up. It's made up. And so really to hammer home, well, whatever you watch them make up here in the United States in front of your eyes in real time, know that this has been how your entire history is marked. Look at this. 50 years from now, somebody's going to be like, sending screenshots of this, right, on a fucking hologram phone taped to their eyeball, saying Antifa cell members did exist. Antifa was a real organization in the United States in the 2020s. Look, I have evidence of it. And they're going to send this. And this is how history gets written. It doesn't matter what's real or fake. Part of American history now is that there was a terrorist organization named Antifa here. that people were actively a part of. That the left was doing domestic terrorism and killing innocent people in Antifa cells all over the United States. This is what they will believe in the future was true about today. Because this is how history works. It doesn't matter if it's real. That's the story, and that's going to be what it is forever, right? So in the 12-day trial that began on February 23rd, jurors heard testimony from more than 45 witnesses and considered 210 exhibits supporting the charges against 9 indicted defendants. And remember, this is what they're going to say about these people. One of these guys moved a box of his own belongings from his house. Posters, journals, magazines. He got 30 years in prison for that. And now you look at this, you're like, okay, so now he's just forever in history a domestic terrorist that's part of a very real cell of Antifa. So and again, I tell you this because I want you to remember this process that's happening now where we are writing the history that future generations will believe is true about what we are experiencing today that is wrong. That is the same history we are consuming about what was happening 100 years ago, 50 years ago, 20 years ago, right? This is the same level of quality of information we're getting about the past. And this is really what hammered things home to me, realizing this, that you don't actually know what's going on, was watching young college students, how they're taught today about the Great Recession. Young college students in the United States today are taught that the Great Recession happened because the housing market was over-regulated. That's what they're being taught. And I lived through that. And no, it's deregulation on the housing market. Fictitious capital, weird financing schemes on a deregulated mortgage market. But no, that's not how they're being taught it today. Why? Because the greatest myth of all, that capitalism works and is good, must persist. So this is what's going on now. So yeah, here are all the people that were involved in this. And we have Attorney General Pam Bondi, saying, Antifa is a domestic terrorist organization that has been allowed to flourish in Democrat-led cities, not under President Trump. Today's verdict on terrorism charges will not be the last, as the Trump administration systematically dismantles Antifa and finally halts their violence on American streets. Not a real org. How do you dismantle it? It does not exist. It does not exist. These guilty verdicts and convictions rightly reflect the vicious armed attacks and these Antifa cell members planned and executed against law enforcement and detention center officers on the night of July 4th last year, said U.S. Attorney Ryan Raybould for the Northern District of Texas. So this is what they're saying. They're saying this was a group of domestic terrorists who plotted together to kill police officers at an ICE detention facility. It's not. This is a group of people who didn't even really know each other, who just happened to be at the same protest. Their terrorist acts, attempted murder, vandalism, and explosives launched in a detention facility, fireworks, were a far cry from a peaceful protest or First Amendment expression. Because of the prompt action of first responders that night and tenacious work of our law enforcement partners in tandem with the prosecutors in my office, 16 people have been brought to justice for these violent acts and their attempts to conceal them. So what do we learn about this? Security culture is really important right now. This is the explosions. What is it? It's a fucking firework. It's a fucking firework. That's what they're saying. It's an explosion. So what do we learn about this? Security culture is very, very important right now, comrades, right? All of our talk about adventurism is very important. There's a microscope on you. If you live in the United States, especially right now, and in England, it looks like as well, from what we've seen, probably everywhere, there's a microscope on you right now. They're watching everything. They are really watching everything. I've seen people from weird right-wing extremist groups come watch our streams and take clips from our streams out of context to try to pretend like there are domestic terrorist organizations operating within the U.S. right now. I mean, it's absolutely crazy. So you need to be aware of that. When we joke about Fed posting, that's real. That's real. I have seen clips from our Twitch stream being used places to try to claim other people that we were just talking about on the news were members of these terrorist orgs. Yeah, you don't need to prove any of this, as no names available is saying. It's just speculating about the intent of people at the protest. Exactly. And in Texas, their proof is that people owned guns in Texas. Do we have the right to own a gun in the United States or not? Pick one, right? Doesn't matter. So it's important. Remember this right now. No Fed posting. Don't Fed post. People have been arrested just for things they've been saying on the internet. It's very, very real right now. We are in a heightened, tense state. And we should be acting that way. Now is not the time for adventurism. Now is not the time, and this is something I wish anarchists understood. Lighting a trash can on fire is not a revolution. When we say, oh, we're revolutionary, there's a lot of room for interpretation about what that means. And it's good, right? That's good that there's a lot of room for interpretation. But we know lighting a trash can on fire is not a revolution. We know lighting fireworks off in front of an ICE detention center is not a revolution. These people should not have, this is not a risk or a harm, right? Think about if this happened in North Korea, this story, people would be losing their shit. You should be able to light off fireworks without expecting you'll be sent to prison for 50 years of your life, right? We know you should be able to. But also we know there's a reason why we don't do stuff like this. That this is not the way we move. And that's why being in an organized party with a strong political acumen, right, is important to keep you on track. Right. We have an anarchist here, Cairo, saying adventurism is ineffective and harmful to the cause. Exactly. And there's a lot of, there's a lot of anarchists who aren't going to get you in trouble. I personally love having anarchists with the same action as me, usually. I think they're fun. But it's there's a lot of people who go around calling themselves communists who will do adventurism too and get you in trouble. Yes, also remember, Signal is not secure. Do not Fed post on Signal. They are looking for anything right now to get you on. They will invent things that you think are perfectly harmless. So now is the time to mind your P's and Q's. Be very, very smart about yourself and your politics, okay? Did we add a Fed posting command? I don't think we did. I don't know. Kubashi, seems like this is a specific kind of adventurism called blanchism based on 19th century socialist Louis Blanc, who preached adventurism through acts of political violence. Yeah, there have been some other people I've read too, I can't remember exactly who talk about this, where they think that increasing random acts of violence will trigger the revolution. We have not seen really examples of that without... we haven't seen a lot of examples of that. I mean, maybe there's some arguments that can be made in the global south, but that's not our approach. I'm a Marxist-Leninist. It's not my approach to revolution, right? So just remember, be smart. Be smart, everybody, because look at the shit they're doing. And also remember, think about what they would say if this happened in China, if this happened in North Korea. And the wild thing is, this wouldn't happen in either of those places, right? Propaganda of the deed, exactly. That's what it is. It's been disproven. Cairo says there's no leftist that hates me more than other anarchists. They fight me more than any other leftist. Yeah. Yeah. No. We have our own version of that in communism. We have the left comms. They're like that too. But I used to be an anarchist. I was ANCOM for forever. And I feel like there's also there's people who do indigenous forms of anarchism that are very compatible with a lot of we share goals. Sometimes we have shared goals and we can work together. And that's important for us to acknowledge, right? So it's important that we stay strong now, that we have each other's backs now, that we stand up for everybody being attacked under the guise of this Antifa crackdown, even if they're not our political designation. And I know we as Marxist-Leninists are very principled and good about that. I was very proud of all the Marxist-Leninists coming out to defend Hassan Piker when he was called in for a subpoena in Congress. We're going to see a lot more of this stuff. And it's important that we put aside our petty bickering for things like this. And we really stand up for each other. Remember, they're coming for all of us. They're coming for all of us. Yes, our Trotskyists are your fellow anarchists. Exactly. Yeah. Yep. And left comes. Yep. Okay. So, a good learning opportunity for us to all remember, move smart, act like everybody's watching all the time. If you need some guidance on that, joining an org is good. My org has been very helpful in making sure I don't run my mouth like an idiot on the internet. I'm very grateful for them. I also forget that just the way I talk normally is very aggressive, because I'm hyperbolic. It's not things I literally mean. When I'm I'm gonna firebomb a Walmart. I don't mean that. That's not what I actually, but that's just how I talk. And my org's been very helpful being you can't even, I know that's a joke. I know that's not what you mean, but you can't say shit like that. And I'm fuck, I don't even think about it, right? Because this is just me talking like an idiot. Being la, 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 talking like I would talk to my friends, and my friends know that it's not literal. But you can't say that stuff on the internet, and that's important for us to remember as well. Comedy is illegal. Hyperbole is illegal. Exactly. So just be smart. Yeah, that joke just sent a ping to an FBI server. Exactly. So, all right, that said, we've got time. Let's get into some more news. We've got other articles we can follow here. Does anybody have any questions or thoughts to wrap up the Prairieland sentencing and what we should take from this right now before we move on? Somebody got arrested for joking about BB. Anybody got anything else? Okay, we'll move on. We'll move on to the next topic. So the next topic that came in second on the chat, one of the dudes who got sentenced. Ugh, it's so horrible. Yeah. Donate to legal aid groups, get to know your neighbors, look out for each other. All things are being appealed. The appeal cases can be won. Microplastics reminds us, yes, that's good. We'll see how it goes. All right, so palate cleanser, Ghost in This Hell has another peasant revolt video for us. Hit us with it, and then we'll move into U.S. Supreme Court and suit alleging Cisco helped China pursue Falun Gong. Which is going to be very interesting for us. Bisco Witch. Will people really have to spend 100 years in prison if they live that long? Is there a chance that you can set free? It depends. So you could get parole, but some sentences have no chance for parole. All right. Here's our palate cleanser. It's a fast one, but the text reads, motherfuckers be like, the king's riches are mostly tied up in castles, the crusades, and his portfolio of inquisitions. Yet they till the field with the same tools their grandparents used. Okay. Oh, look at the types of comments I get. China's more of a mixed economy now. Burr, burr, burr. No, I can't deal with that right now. I cannot deal. We don't have time for that. Okay. So, second article then. Moving into our second segment of the day. U.S. Supreme Court ends suit alleging Cisco helped China pursue Falun Gong. I'm very curious to see how this Reuters article is going to explain Falun Gong to us all. Oh, I'm so fascinated by this. Okay. The Supreme Court further limited the reach of a federal law used to hold corporations liable for human rights abuses committed abroad as it issued a ruling on Tuesday ending a lawsuit by members of the Falun Gong movement accusing Cisco Systems of facilitating religious persecution in China. This is like the girls are fighting. This is right-wing infighting. You have your fringe religious freak cult that's trying to overthrow communism getting into a fight with a corporation that wants to overthrow communism because the ways in which they uniquely want to overthrow communism have interfered with each other. It's capitalist on capitalist infighting. Cisco's like, we love capitalism. We would like to make money. What will you pay us to do, China? And China's like, here's some money. Go track down those Falun Gong fucks. And Falun Gong is like, hello? And we're supposed to be safe. We're supposed to be safe from this because we also want to overthrow communism and do capitalism. Hello? So this is very, very funny. In Dublin, you would see Falun Gong protesters in the street protesting every week, Maurer says. I asked my Chinese girlfriend at the time what the fuck was going on. She was just like, they're just weirdos. They are. Falun Gong is freaks. Okay. Let's see. The justices in a 6-3 ruling reversed a lower court's decision that had breathed new life into the 2011 lawsuit, which was brought under the Alien Tort Statute of 1789. Those 1789 laws really doing the work here in the United States in 2026. Good to know. Yeah, they're the Shenyang people. Yeah. The suit had alleged that Cisco knowingly developed technology that allowed China's government to surveil and persecute Falun Gong members. Rare Cisco win. So this Alien Tort Statute had apparently been dormant for nearly 2 centuries before lawmakers began using it in the 1980s to bring international human rights cases to U.S. courts. The Cisco case posed the question of whether the law creates liability for corporations that aid and abet human rights abuses. I'm dying to know how this is a human rights abuse. A form of what is called accomplice liability. Conservative Justice Amy Coney Barrett, who authored the decision, said that the lower court erred in finding that aiding and abetting liability exists under the Alien Tort Statute for Cisco's disputed conduct. This also just goes to prove there's nothing politically consistent about American capitalism or any capitalism. It's all just opportunism. When the law conveniently can be applied to benefit the ruling class, they'll take it. When it's inconvenient, they're like, no, not that one. Not the not that one. Right? Yeah, for anybody who doesn't know, Falun Gong is a right-wing religious cult that came under fire in China because they started telling people that if they Falun Gonged hard enough, they would not need to take medicine and Falun Gong would cure their bodies, and then like 1,000 people died. I mean, it was crazy. So China outlawed them, and then they came to the United States suspiciously fast and set up shop in upstate New York. A lot of people suspect the CIA helped them with this, but we don't have documented evidence of that yet. And started the Shenyang dance troupe that was a propaganda tour going around the United States to talk about how great life was in China before communism. It was like feudalism. It was not great. And yeah, so the United States loves them, and their showings always are full of who's who of American government. So they're a right-wing religious cult. They're the part owners of the Moody Sushi conspiracy. Interesting. They're very racist. They're very homophobic. They're extremely right-wing. Yeah. So they, U.S. government darlings, came after U.S. government darling corporation in a legal battle. The girls are fighting. So this ended up getting overruled. All right. Paul Hoffman, a lawyer for the plaintiffs, expressed disappointment with the court's ruling and said it was up to Congress to act so that the victims of serious human rights violations at the hands of U.S. corporations may hold those corporations accountable in U.S. courts. I don't know what they would even be alleging was a human rights abuse that they suffered. Like, what human rights abuses? Oh, yeah, and Falun Gong has their own newspaper called the Epoch Times. What human rights abuses are they going to say? Let's see if they talk about it. Let's continue. Okay, so Falun Gong accused Cisco, the technology company, of designing and implementing the Golden Shield, an internet surveillance system used by the Chinese Communist Party to target dissidents. The plaintiff said China used the system to track and then torture Falun Gong members? Did they just arrest them? Is that what it is? President Donald Trump's administration sided with Cisco in the case. They're like, don't get too big for your britches, Falun Gong. You have specific utility in the United States. You are not as important as our major multinational corporations. The Human Rights Law Foundation, a nonprofit organization in Washington, sued Cisco on behalf of a group of Falun Gong members. Now, I'm willing to get this is also like kind of a good exercise in how the Democrats and Republicans operate here in the United States. The Democrats' brand of capitalism and the Republicans' brand of capitalism. The Democrats make use of this massive administrative system of small NGOs, which are technically non-governmental organizations, but they're funded by the U.S. government. They're quasi-governmental organizations that do a lot of propaganda and intelligence work and crafting narratives, kind of soft power as we think about it, influencing elections, buying elections, creating fake media outlets to spread a pro-Western agenda. And the Republican way of doing things is just show up with a bunch of guns and start firing. So Falun Gong is employed as a political propaganda tool by the more liberal-minded capitalists in the United States, our Democratic Party. They rely on Falun Gong and groups like Falun Gong to advance a narrative that grants the United States more international and national, political power and affirms the validity of capitalism here. Falun Gong is used as a mouthpiece of people from China who've supposedly been persecuted by communism to tell you how evil communism is. If you need some Chinese people to tell you they hate communism, dial up Falun Gong, they'll send a guy out, right? And a lot of these people affiliated with Falun Gong, with their newspaper, the Epoch Times, do this kind of talking head work in media in the U.S. to talk about the evils of communism in China, right? They have utility, and this is part of this vast network of decentralized administrative quasi-governmental agencies that the Democratic Party loves to employ. Well, the Republican Party, the Trump administration, does not like that. They think that's too chaotic, that's not easily enough controlled. They want to centralize all of that under the executive branch of our government, which is the White House. So a lot of those organizations that were receiving funding for this type of propaganda work, that funding actually got cut under the Donald Trump administration. Not because he doesn't want to do that work or hate China, he does. He just has a different idea of how it should be done. So what we see right now is really kind of a Democrats versus Republicans proxy battle fighting out legally. We have Falun Gong, who's long been a liberal tool of anti-China propaganda, coming up against, unfortunately, a tech company. And these tech oligarchs have been very vocal in funding and backing Donald Trump's career. And he's been really in bad with the tech industry. So you have these two darlings of American capitalism, the more liberal progressive version, and the more Republican neo-Nazi far-right technocratic, conservative version. And this is the fight they're having over political power. The girls are really fighting, yes. The girls are fighting, just like Poland and Ukraine. The girls are always fighting. So they're going to talk about it here. Falun Gong, founded in China in 1992, was banned by China's government in 1999 after thousands of members appeared in the central leadership compound in Beijing in silent protest. They don't talk about why. The group has called for people to renounce the ruling Chinese Communist Party. Falun Gong members founded a right-leaning U.S. media outlet called Epoch Times that has been heavily critical of the Chinese Communist Party and supports Trump. So they support Trump too, but their utility under the Trump administration is a little less. That's not really how the Trump administration likes to do things, right? They don't like using all these propaganda sites. It's too much. It's too much. It's more of how the liberals do things. So that's interesting. The San Francisco-based Ninth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals revived the case in 2023, allowed it to move towards discovery, and then it was eventually thrown out. Okay, so the Epoch Times. So let's talk about Falun Gong and why they were banned in China really fast. Let me see if I can find it. So a lot of people who grew up in this have described it as a cult. A lot of survivors. And we have some info about this. Let's see. You got to get through all the propaganda slops. So I'm searching. Oh, Maurer says every small business owner you've ever done tech support for has an Epoch Times subscription. Really? That's so crazy. I'm getting my search signals going. We have China obviously talking about it. But people don't like China, so let's see what else we can have. I think I might have found something. Sorry, everybody. Okay, here we go. We've got this now. So this is from the New York Times. What is Falun Gong's belief system? Many Falun Gong practitioners try to avoid medical treatment when they are sick because the founder, Mr. Lee, teaches that negative karma causes illness and that illness can be eliminated by enduring hardship and committing to his cultivation method. True believers think they can expel illness from their bodies without medical treatment, according to him. So this is what happened. And China was like, hey, Falun Gong practitioners are dying because you're telling them not to take medicine when they're sick. We think this might be a harmful cult. And this is when that rally in April of 1999 happened. Here's they talk about this. They skipped this part, though. Why? So why was it banned? Well, because people were not taking medicine. They were literally dying, right? Asian Jehovah's Witness, maybe, yeah. How many, and when you look it up, died in China. I'm looking right now. there's all this crazy stuff. Let's look at what China says. We'll take a look at what China says, because they are correct in this. But all of the American reporting is that when you search like Falun Gong deaths, everything you're going to see in the United States is the religious persecution of Falun Gong practitioners, Falun Gong deaths in custody, death in detention of a Falun Gong practitioner. So it's just, when you search it, you're not going to find anything about Falun Gong telling their people to stop taking medicine and die. This is probably strategic, would be my guess. They are making these claims that Falun Gong practitioners were dying in Chinese prisons en masse. We don't actually have like evidence of that being a real thing, other than people dying because they refuse to take medicine. But when you search it now, Falun Gong deaths, you're not going to find anything. Well, this is like search result loading, and this is something that people do with like SEO to try to bury things. Celebrities do this a lot. When something breaks out, they try to like bury it with like weird random terms so you can't find it. And yeah, this is what's going on here. But it's all hidden. It's all hidden here. So China talks about this themselves, though, about what's been going on. This is an article from 2005 that they're talking about. Sorry, the formatting is weird. They were deemed to be an illegal and dangerous organization. As a result, they say over 1,500 Falun Gong practitioners in China died by refusing medical treatment for their illness. And China is describing it as a doomsday cult. They're like, doomsday is coming and people should sacrifice their lives to achieve fulfillment. Many followers also committed suicide because of this. So this is what China's take is. They're like, no, you're like hurting people. We're not letting you do that. 1,500 people died. Not 50,000, sorry. For the person asking. Yeah, but it's a lot. It's a lot. And that's who these fucking people are. So basically what happened is China was like, hey, over 1,000 of you have died. This is clearly a religious cult. This is not legal according to our laws. Get out of here. And then they came to the United States and set up shop here. All right, so they have their own news. This is Epoch Times. This is Falun Gong's newspaper. And it's very, very right-wing. It's very pro-Trump. And I wonder if they talk about Falun Gong. Do you guys think they have Falun Gong articles? Let's see. Oh, yeah. See, they have stories about Falun Gong booths attacked in London 9 days ago. Attackers arrested after vandalizing Falun Gong site in Jeju, South Korea. 3 men assault Falun Gong practitioners outside of duty-free shop in South Korea. Wait, why do people in South Korea hate them so much? Oh my god. Yeah, it's like Jim Jones shit. Yeah, they're crazy. People's Daily Online has a source for the deaths. Let's take a look at that. Yeah, more. Okay, here we go. Yes, all right. So 2 more followers. This says in the year, what year was this one? 2000s, we'll say. Early 2000s, died of ordinary diseases after refusing medical treatment. One of them, Hu Guangyang, a retired worker, died from an infection from an ulcer, while the other, Ji Yang, a farmer, died from enteritis. Falun Gong deprived my mother of her life, throwing her family into perpetual pain, said Zhao Hong, Hu's son. The 58-year-old Hu began practicing Falun Gong in 1996 and gradually became obsessed by the cult's ideas, like the belief that practitioners may achieve nirvana by practicing Falun Gong. In August 2000, she was infected with scabies, but turned a deaf ear to her family, persuading her to see a doctor. It's a poison-excreting reaction resulting from practicing Falun Gong, Hu said to her children. Hu's 4-year-old grandson was also infected with the disease through Hu, but recovered after using anti-scabies ointment for just 4 days. Zhao then offered the ointment to Hu, and she turned it down, insisting that Falun Gong followers should not receive medical treatment. Hu's conditions took a turn for the worse at the end of January, and doctors said the direct cause of her death was infection from an ulcer, which resulted from the scabies. So this is a thing that could have been cleared up in 4 days with treatment, and because of her religion, because this religious cult preyed on her, they said that they wouldn't do the medication. Yes, the Moonies, Shinzo Abe died because of them. Yeah, Scientology, where the Christian Scientists did. Yeah, this is exactly it. So this is them. They came to the United States after they were outlawed in China, and they try to really make a case that they're being persecuted for their religion in China. And this is a big reason why so many people think religion is outlawed in China. Religion is not outlawed in China. Telling people to give you money and then letting them die of preventable deaths is outlawed in China, as I think it should be, right? So let's look at their health. Here we go. Enduring innumerable torments, a triumph over illness through Falun Gong. This is the Epoch Times, what they're saying. And this is what they talk about. So this is an idea of their ideology. Xia Yuzhu, a 72-year-old Taiwanese, exemplifies the quintessential traits of a traditional Eastern woman. Piety and forbearance. Throughout the decades of her marriage before turning 60, she appeared diligent and uncomplaining. Yet in the middle of the night, she would hide beneath her covers, secretly shedding tears. Her suppressed grievances drove her to express sorrow over life's unfairness. She had always yearned to have children, yet she experienced the misfortune of 7 miscarriages. It was only after the final miscarriage, which brought about significant bleeding, that her uterus had to be surgically removed, leaving her body significantly weakened. Nevertheless, she continued to care for her bedridden mother-in-law. Faced with constant demands and criticisms from her mother-in-law, Miss Yu obediently complied in accordance with her husband's steadfast belief that a parent's words are sacred deeds meant to be obeyed. I've undergone 7 or 8 surgeries. Before each procedure, I often found myself thinking, God, take me away. I don't want to live anymore. But I would always awaken afterwards. I used to suffer from severe depression, and I frequently reached the point of contemplating suicide, Ms. Shaw revealed in a recent interview with the Epoch Times. When she turned 60, she experienced an unusual episode of abdominal pain. Having undergone numerous surgeries before, she was no stranger to abdominal discomfort. Initially, she assumed it was caused by the same abdominal adhesions. However, the pain escalated, prompting a hospital visit. Suspecting peritonitis, her doctor performed surgery, only discovered she had a rare type of cancer. It spreads within the abdominal cavity by secreting mucin, a type of mucus. Most individuals only experience symptoms when their abdomens are full with mucus, a condition referred to as jelly belly. It does not spread through the bloodstream or lymphatic system like other cancers, but it can spread across the surfaces of various organs, posing a challenge for treatment. It's extremely rare and affects only around 2 individuals per million every single year. Doctors told her that her condition was untreatable and she might have at most 2 or 3 years left to live. A surgical specialist told her, eat and drink whatever you can, wait for your time at home. So she made preparations for a funeral. It says she purchased burial clothes, she had a funeral portrait taken. Not long after, her brother told her about a neighbor who had a peculiar ailment, unexplained muscle atrophy in the legs, who improved after practicing Falun Gong. So her brother suggested she give it a try. So she joined a Falun Gong study class, and this is all about how much she loved it. The book is telling a story, unveiling the truths of life, explaining how the universe works, and exploring why more people undergo suffering in this world. The more I read, the more I found myself enjoying it. Shortly after completing Zhaolin Falun, the discomforting knot that had been weighing on Mrs. Shaw's chest dissipated. She experienced a sense of refreshment and ease. I no longer resent life's unfairness. The book has untied the knots in my heart. After completing the Falun Gong study class, she started participating at a nearby Falun Gong practice site. During the practice, she could feel a strong sense of surging in her hands, and her body felt at ease. She thoroughly enjoyed the experience. She'd been tirelessly reading books related to Falun Gong, including Zhuan Falun. She shared, I often read late into the night because I enjoy it. Not only do I not feel tired, but the more I read, the clearer my eyes become. It's quite miraculous, considering I'd undergone surgery for retinal detachment and had been experiencing blurry vision and eye fatigue for over a decade after surgery. Before Falun Gong, she suffered from sleep disorders. Even after her mother-in-law's passing, she would still dream about her, leading to considerable stress. She also experienced night terrors, unable to move her body at all. Remarkably, she says, after reading Zhuan Falun, all the stress in my heart melted away and I started sleeping soundly. I now wake up early every day, brimming with joy and an inexplicable sense of happiness. About a week after joining Falun Gong morning group exercises, her appetite began to improve. After practicing for about a month, she says, I was able to eat normally again. My strength returned to its usual level. My body felt light and rejuvenated. It has been 12 years since that. She still practices Falun Gong every day. Right? Okay, so what are we getting at here? Falun Gong, cultivating virtue and enhancing physical well-being. They talk about what Falun Gong is, and they talk about how you have improved emotional well-being, enhanced physical health, and the resolution of various chronic illnesses through the practice. All right? This is what we're talking about. This is what was outlawed in China. This bizarre religious cult. It says you can cure cancer with Falun Gong. You just have to pay money for the classes. That's what it is. There you go. It's very Scientology coded. It's China Scientology. And now they're here in the United States because China was like, get the fuck out of here. So that's who we got up against. So these people, though, are the people claiming that they experienced religious persecution in China, that they've been unfairly treated by China, that communism is bad, and that China needs to return to life before communism. What, when there was like a 30-year life expectancy and you could bilk hardworking people out of their fucking money by telling them you had a secret to all of life that would cure them of cancer? It's crazy. It's super predatory and exploitative. And this generally represents China's outlook on religion. You can practice your religion fine, but you can't use your religion to scam people out of money and tell them that you can cure all their illnesses with it, right? That's it. So these are the people that came up against Cisco technology. Right on right crime. It's a right wing infighting there. Cisco versus Falun Gong. And Trump said, I like you, but not that much, to Falun Gong. He said, I like Cisco more. Cisco's more important than you guys. Sorry. Yeah, Falun Gong's white people in the United States would love it. So it's like goop. It's like one step removed from goop. Very, very funny. Very funny. So this is all the stuff you see about them talking about what's going on, with the Falun Gong people. All right, we have time to do a map, definitely, from now. We got 2 stories in. That was pretty good. I do need to take a bathroom break, so give me 5 and we'll come back and we'll do map. Yeah? Yeah, everybody? Let's do it. Let's do a little breaky. Hi, Chad, I'm back. Hello, hello, hello. Sorry. Bathroom break. Bathroom break. Alright. Are you guys ready to get into map? Are we ready to map? A little map. Let's do a little map. Let's check on our map. Hello. What are we doing on the map today? My maps. I think it's time for us to do either Nepal, Bhutan, or Bangladesh, or Sri Lanka. Let's do Nepal. Let's do Nepal. I think we should do Nepal. You guys ready to talk about Nepal? I'm ready. I'm so ready. What if we did a weapon instead of a map? We're so close to done with the map, though. Look at this. We're so close to done with the map. We're so there, and then we're just going to have to update things as new information comes out and new things happen in the world. We're, like, so close. We just got, let's crank it out. Let's go. Let's fucking go. Let's get amped on learning about Nepal. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Oh, shit. What just happened? Oh. My light lost its power. That's okay. Never ready to talk about Nepal. Nobody wants to talk about Nepal. Hummus Guzzler hates Nepal. Confirmed. Let's get into Nepal. Oh, I'm trying to think about, like, what is my knowledge of Nepal? Where does it start? Where does it end? Like, there's some things I seem to remember about Nepal and China, but I'm kind of out of my comfort zone with Nepal. All right, so we got nothing going on here with the NATO Super Friends Alliance. That brings us to the NED report here, and we got some stuff going on with the NED report. Let's see what's going on with the NED report. So NED is saying several strategic countries require especially focused attention, and in addition to naming Venezuela, they named Nepal. They say they see developments that could be geopolitically consequential. Very fascinating. Let's see what else they've got here. They also are saying in Nepal, Sri Lanka, and Bangladesh, movements have created the opportunity to return to electoral politics that reflect the will of the people. The will of what people? The will of the people in charge of the United States government? Yeah, I think that's probably what they mean. And, oh, shit. No. Turn. I hate these fucking PDF reader documents. Just give me the fucking PDF. I don't need the whole reader. It's ass. You know what I mean? You know what I'm talking about? Okay, so then they're talking about Gen Z-driven protests challenging political exclusion to Nepal, Madagascar. Oh, is Nepal who just had the protests over the internet stuff? That's Nepal, right? Is that Nepal? They just had the internet protests. That's them. Without looking, I can tell you their spending between 2024 and 2025 went up 5 times. Whoa, really? It's not on this report. Is it? Is it on here? Yes, this is what it is. We don't have Nepal on here. They must have spent it not through NED, though. We must have spent it somewhere else. Yes, this is right. Got it. Okay, I'm there. I'm locked in. Gen Z color revolution in Nepal. I remember. Yes. Okay. Nepal's going to be a good one. All right. Okay. So, millions of Nepalese celebrated the toppling of the monarchy through armed resistance under the leadership of the communists in 2006. All right. So that's what happened there. Then we have, that's not helpful to us here. No U.S. sanctions list, no U.S. military intervention, no U.S. bases. Nepal abolished the monarchy in 2008, established a republic made by the left, and has made significant strides in legally and politically emancipating historically marginalized communities. They voted yes on a Russia withdrawal and yes on a Gaza ceasefire. Okay, and they are in the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Now, we got to talk about what's going on. New Atlas has the background on Nepal's connection to NED. Oh, let's take a look at that. Oh, we gotta find all that. Yes, they had the Gen Z, the internet revolutions. Okay, so I can tell you this off the top of my head without looking, which is that Nepal wanted to control their internet. the same way China has with firewalls, mostly to foster and develop their own internet-based businesses. So we've seen China do this, and that's how they were able to develop Alibaba as their alternative to like Amazon, that's the one. And they were able to develop their own streaming services, social media platforms like Rednote instead of Instagram, et cetera, et cetera. It was very, very good for them to foster their own development, their productive forces, right, in China, in terms of tech industry. So DPRK, similarly, there's a little different because elements of telecommunications are part of the blockade against the DPRK. But, you know, for whatever reason, the combination of the blockade and them fostering their own development, they were able to come up with their own version of Netflix, right? They have their own streaming service. Uber, they have their own cab service app. Food delivery services like Uber Eats, Postmates, they have their own version of that too. So Nepal tried to do this as well. Let's take a look at the new Atlas link. There's a 500K single line item after a bunch of usual 10K items. They have to have changed their report to something net wouldn't betray you like this. Let's take a look. National Endowment for Democracy, Nepal spending. It's possible they spent the money in 2024, right? So this is 2024 fiscal year grant making in Asia, just a one sheet. And here we see Nepal has a $110,000 budget that's discretionary and a $1.6 million core institute budget for a total of $1.7 million spent in 2024. So I think that's what's going on. So in 2026, they have a revolution. Communist Party comes to power. Now, what was made confusing by this is we saw some Nepalese comrades who were like, I have complaints of my government. And this is always going to happen. You're going to have communists who have complaints of their communist government. This is normal. But sometimes this is used by people in the West to claim that it's not actually a communist government then. Why? Because you saw 12 communists on the internet say that their government wasn't doing everything perfect. That doesn't mean it's not a communist government, right? And that was part of the confusion being sowed during the color revolution that was attempted, right, in Nepal recently within the past year. And so this did happen. You had some communists be like, well, I'm not 100% happy with them. Well, nobody's 100% happy with their government no matter what, right? And that's important for us to remember. That doesn't mean it's not a communist government just because you see a couple of communists on the internet be like, I think they should have done this differently. That's just normal. That's just normal. But what we do know, sorry, back to this, is the fact that the United States in 2024 was spending $1.7 million there, and for a reason, right? They're doing that for a reason. That's the second highest tier of spending. The rest would be reserved for, like, you know, China. Look at that right there for that relatively small country. So let's see what we can find about the protest. Was it 2025 or 2026? 2025. All right. Let's take a look. Wow, time goes really fast. Let's read about this. The revolution, September 2025. That's almost a year ago. Wow. Okay. So the 2025 Gen Z uprising in Nepal, a 3-part analysis. Now remember, this is the same thing they tried to do in Mexico. They're like, it's a Gen Z protest. And you're like, well, but it's because Westerners associate being young with being opposed to the government. And our governments are really conservative, capitalist governments. So we think that young people must be more progressive than their governments. But sometimes when you have a progressive government, young people are more conservative than their governments. And that's why they're rising up. And sometimes they're being paid by the United States to rise up. So also these signs are in English. What is the native language of Nepal? Nepali. They have 45% of their population speaks Nepali. Why are there signs in English? What percent of people there speak English? 0% of people in Nepal speak English. Mother tongue, anyway. Second language, 0.35% of Nepal speaks English as a second language. So 0% have it as their native tongue, their first language. 0.35% of Nepal speaks it even as a second language. What language are these signs in? English. So why would an organic uprising movement in another country that happens to have communist leadership, where only 0.35% of the population even speaks English, have all of their protest signs in English. Who do you think those signs are for? Yeah, who do you think those signs were for? They're for us. They're for the United States. They're for us. They're for Europe as well, I guess, but mostly for us. They said on September 8th, this is from Harvard, so, biased, right? Pro-capitalist source. On September 8, 2025, for the first time in Nepal's modern political history, mass civilian deaths occurred in anti-corruption movement. They always call them anti-corruption protests. They carried neither party banners nor ideological manifestos. Instead, the movement was driven by a leaderless network of young students. I bet it was driven by some dudes in the United States on their computers, coordinated through digital platforms, and united by frustration over corruption, censorship, and unaccountable governance. This is like what the federal government does in 2025 vibes, right? The state's response of September 8th constituted one of the most severe episodes of violence against civilians in Nepal's post-1990 democratic era. The gathering that day was widely expected to be nonviolent, given that it was mostly composed of teenagers and students in school uniforms, and because public protest had long been an institutionalized feature of Nepali civil society. So they're saying it became the deadliest single day in Nepal's democratic history, claiming the lives of more young unarmed civilians on a single day than during the entire 2006 pro-democracy movement. Well, that's because the United States tried to overthrow the government. So, by the end of September, at least 75 civilians have been confirmed dead, over 2,000 injured. Gunshot wounds inflicted during clashes between demonstrators and security forces. All gunfire victims were struck above the waist, primarily in the head, neck, and chest, violating crowd control protocols. Several deaths also occurred as a result of arson-related incidents during the rioting, with victims trapped in government buildings, shops, and residential structures that were set ablaze. So the supposed protesters lit a bunch of fires that killed people. There were some gunshot wounds from police officers doing crowd control. Several deaths also occurred as a result of arson-related incidents. We talked about that already. Sorry. Tear gas was deployed, blah, 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 blah. So, public discontent in Nepal reached a boiling point on September 4th, 2025, after the government banned 26 social media platforms for failing to comply with its registration requirements. Now, this was also a thing of particular note. They didn't even really ban foreign tech companies from operating in Nepal. They said you have to register with them. And foreign tech companies in protest refused to do so, because they were just like, fuck you. We do what we want, kind of a vibe. So Nepal called their bluff. It was like, fine, then you don't operate in Nepal anymore, right? Facebook, YouTube. It's not that these apps were outlawed outright. They consciously chose to allow it to reach this point because they opted not to register with the Nepali government. We requested them to enlist with us 5 times, says Gajinda Kumar Thakur, a spokesperson for the ministry in charge of this in Nepal, the Ministry of Communication and Information. What are we to do when they don't listen to us? This is the question asked. And this is exactly what happened. So in November 2023, Nepal banned TikTok, saying the app affected social harmony. TikTok agreed then to register with the government, and 9 months later, the ban was lifted. So all they had to do was register with the government. That's all they had to do, right? And now the West was trying to paint this as Nepal's sweeping ban on social media sets a dangerous precedent for press freedom, according to Bailey Yee, the regional director for the Committee to Protect Journalists, in a statement. Now, didn't England just ban social media for people under the age of 16? Why isn't the West reporting on that as a dangerous precedent for press freedom? Nepal, you just have to register with the government, and all of a sudden that's a dangerous precedent for press freedom. England, anybody under the age of 16 is not allowed to use social media. That's not a dangerous precedent for press freedom. Right? So that's some peak hypocrisy right now. And all they had to do was register with the government. They did not. So, and they consciously did. They're like, we're not doing that. No. So then Nepal was like, fine, then you're banned until you file the paperwork. Just file the paperwork. That's all they had to do is submit a fucking form. And they didn't. But this was utilized, obviously, by nefarious actors who had their hand with $1.7 million of funding from the United States government in Nepal through the National Endowment for Democracy, and somehow was sparked into a full protest movement. The move was the final spark for public already enraged. For months, a viral trend on social media, #NepoBaby, had brought widespread attention and commentary on the strong disparity between the lavish lifestyles of politicians and their families and the public that had long been frustrated by rampant corruption, unemployment, and human capital flight. This Gen Z movement had already spread through Indonesia, the Philippines, and Bangladesh. Following a pattern seen across Southeast Asia, this online movement finally erupted into the streets of Nepal when the government pulled the plug on their primary means of expression. I'm also willing to bet this Nepo baby thing was probably started by us. This feels like a Fed-coded thing, but again, that's just me speculating wildly. This is me speculating wildly. But even if it were true, okay, so, government leaders in your country, you feel like they're living better lifestyles maybe than the people. That's totally a valid complaint for people to have of their government. That doesn't mean that it's okay for the United States to show up and try to overthrow their government. Very obviously, the United States liked that was going on, tried to stoke those issues, turn them into a protest movement that was more of an opportunity for us to establish a government more favorable to us and our tech companies. All right? So that's, The requirement for social media registration was rooted in the Social Media Management Directive 2080 in November 2023. Despite multiple warnings and diplomatic outreach, most platforms did not meet the registration deadline of August 28th, 2025. They had 2 years to do this, to file a form, and they didn't. All right? Yeah, they're using the same templates. You're like, is this Bangladesh? It's this, again, United States is one playbook. There's not many plays in it. There's just a few, and that's what we're doing. Ooh, 40 stream streak. Welcome, Twister Pokey. Officials framed the shutdown as a long overdue regulatory intervention, arguing that unregistered platforms had become a breeding ground for hate speech, coordinated misinformation campaigns, online harassment, and content that could incite violence. Yes. However, critics said the ban went far beyond routine regulation, was aimed at silencing online dissent. I mean, girl, you just made that up. That's speculation. They told everybody you have 2 years to comply. People didn't comply, and so then they did what they said they were going to do and took it down. It's crazy. So they're saying several locations became areas of confrontation. The protests began at Maidigar Mandala, a major roundabout at the site of public demonstrations. They moved eastward. Unrest widened. Curfews were imposed. I mean, that happens in the United States all the time. Blah, blah, blah. So at 9 a.m., thousands of young protesters began gathering. And they are also seen waving One Piece flags. You were right. This is also a One Piece Gen Z protest attempt, just like Mexico. And in fact, the fact that Mexico's failed so epically and was set up the same way should tell us what was going on here, right? So crowds grew. Also, these protests were organized, I believe, on Discord, if I remember correctly. I think it was Discord. Maybe Reddit, but I think it was Discord. So very, very plausible that it just took a few guys working for the U.S. government, for intelligence agencies, sitting behind a computer, doing away, right? That could easily be done. Yes, One Piece is in the anime. Yes. Yes. So officials reported, all right, around 3 p.m., where do we go? Oh, okay, here we go. By 11:30 a.m., demonstrators breached police barricades, prompting security forces to deploy water cannons, and then tear gas followed around 15 minutes later. By 12:08 p.m., 20 individuals had climbed the main gate of federal parliament. Now, this is what I'm going to say. Every country, probably, if you try to overthrow the government there, is going to try to stop you from overthrowing the government. This idea we have in the West that countries are supposed to let themselves be overthrown without fighting back is very politically convenient for us. The United States would never expect to allow a capitalist country to just be overthrown. But the fact that countries under communist leadership or leadership that's even just not very sympathetic to American businesses, right, that they are not allowed to try to stop their government from being overthrown, it's extremely hypocritical. Right? Now, obviously, I'm a communist. I'm in favor of communist governments. I think we should overthrow capitalist governments, as like a concept. No Fed posting, not Fed posting on that, right? And I am in favor of Marxist-Leninist governments. However, even when a capitalist government tries to stop its government from getting overthrown, that makes sense to me. That's not irrational. That's not like a human rights violation occurred. That's what the government's going to do. Of course, they're going to try to maintain power and withhold power, right? So, they didn't even let January 6th happen. Maurer says counterpoint. It feels like maybe they were supposed to, but whatever, So regardless of your political orientation, we understand that a government is going to try to defend itself from being overthrown. So the fact that capitalists claim that this is a human rights abuse when a communist country under communist leadership tries to stop itself from being overthrown, but is something that you're not supposed to do. But if they were experiencing communists trying to overthrow the government, they would fight back. This is just like a contradiction. Even as a Marxist-Leninist, I understand that every country is going to try to defend itself from being overthrown by people. That is to be expected, right? No morality imposed. Obviously, I can play team sports and be like, I like the communist ones. Yay! Go for it, win, haha, right? But it's still rational to me that they're going to try to defend themselves. So I just think it's really weird when capitalists present this like, oh, can you believe the government didn't let itself get overthrown? Yeah, I can believe that. Yeah, I can believe that even for governments I don't agree with, that they didn't let themselves get overthrown. Yeah. So very weird. All right, whatever. So, by 11:38 a.m., demonstrators breached the first police barricades, prompting security forces to deploy water cannons. Tear gas followed at 11:55 a.m., and by 12:08 p.m., around 20 individuals had climbed the main gate of federal parliament. So then 22 minutes later, they imposed a curfew, the government did. At 12:37, police opened fire, targeting protesters who climbed up on the terrace of a small building near the parliament gate. They're trying to break into the parliament building. They're trying to take over the government. So, yeah, this is not surprising to me. And this is why also adventurism is important. Unless you have a plan, unless you're like, we've got a plan. Like, what do you do? This is to be expected. This is what's going to happen. A journalist was shot while reporting. Injured protesters were transported to a hospital, though nearby. Several vehicles burned outside. One ambulance was damaged. Protesters climbed a police checkpost inside the parliament compound. I mean, it looks like, they try to overthrow the government. This is what it looks like to me. It looks like they try to overthrow the government. Here's what's going on here. The communications minister was like, fine, we'll lift the fucking social media ban. Jesus Christ, That was it. And that's what happened. So then the next day, though, that wasn't enough. More protests emerged. And then former prime minister's house was set on fire. 6 minutes later, the burning of Gagan Thapa's home. They're lighting everything on fire. The prime minister formally resigned. And security officials said they had no authorization to open fire, even if major government buildings were attacked. Fires then spread to the Supreme Court, the Maoist Party headquarters, and later to the District Court and Special Court. Alright, so 3,000 inmates broke out of jail, So this all happens. Yeah, they lit a bunch of stuff on fire. They lit everything on fire. They lit buildings on fire. They lit cars on fire. Maoist Party headquarters. In the aftermath of ex-Prime Minister Ali's resignation, the Nepal army invited representatives of the Gen Z movement for dialogue. They're like, okay, come talk to us then. During the meeting, Chief of Army Staff Ashok Raj Sigdel mentioned businessmen Durga Prasad and Rastriya Swantara Party as stakeholders in the movement. Businessmen, stakeholders in the movement. No, we don't have time for hydrates right now. We got to finish this. I only have 8 minutes. No time. This prompted several Gen Z representatives to walk out. So 2 businessmen helped lead this movement. BAM stated outside of Army headquarters that the Army chief had instructed them to meet the president and participate in negotiations together. She said the delegates believed that being grouped with them would undermine the credibility of their movement, so they refused the proposal and left the meeting. Shortly after, on a Discord server called Youth Against Corruption with over 145,000 members, more than 10,000 users met virtually to debate potential candidates through hours of discussion, multiple polls, and the use of sub-channels for fact-checking. 5 names were shortlisted for the final voting. Harka Sampang, a social activist and mayor of Dharan, Mahabir Poon, a popular social entrepreneur and activist running the National Innovation Center, Sagar Dakal, an independent youth leader, advocate Rastra Bhimachin Tamalsini, known as Random Nepali on YouTube, a YouTuber, and former Chief Justice Sushila Karki. An open Discord poll drew 7,000 votes, with Karki receiving 50%. The selection process involved 3 days of hectic negotiations with sharp differences among different groups over appointing Karki as prime minister. While President Ramchandra Patel was adamant about staying within constitutional bounds, Gen Z youth were frustrated over what they saw by unnecessary delays, with differences centering on whether and when to dissolve parliament. On September 12th, President Ramchandra Patel appointed Karki as interim prime minister under Article 61.4 of the Constitution of Nepal, making her the country's first female head of government. Upon her recommendation, Patel dissolved the 275-seat parliament and set up elections for March 5th, 2026, approximately 2 years earlier than planned. The immediate appointment of former Chief Justice Sushila Karki to the Prime Minister's office triggered a constitutional dispute, as the decision raised a prima facie contradiction with Article 132.2 of the Constitution. This provision explicitly states that any individual who has once held the office of Chief Justice shall not be eligible for appointment to any government office except as otherwise provided by the Constitution. It's a foundational provision designed to maintain the strict separation of powers and protect judicial independence. It's actually kind of smart. In defense of the new appointment, legal experts, including prominent constitutional lawyer Bipin Adhikari, advocated for pragmatic interpretation of the Constitution. Adhikari did not dispute the textual conflict, but argued the nation's stability and the imperative to resolve a deadly political vacuum justified the move. His defense rested on the doctrine of necessity. Okay, so this is what's going on. They're saying there was more violence in 2025 than usual. Here's demonstrations held in Nepal by year. These are the number of demonstrations. So a lot came in 2021. They shot 6,200 tear gas shells, 1,800 rubber rounds, and 2,600 live bullets. A 12-year-old student died. At least 19 students were reported killed that day alone. Okay, all right, okay. So there we go. All right, so that's the Harvard summary of what happened. Now, this came from December, how social media is reshaping Nepal's democracy. In September, Nepali Instagram was full of teenagers taking photos in front of the burning ruins of their country's parliament. Widespread youth protests broke out. They're using social media. This feels very Fed-coded. So the question is, what's up with the current government? Did they have elections in March like they planned? And what's going on with them now? They're holding courses in Nepal and how to disrupt and overthrow, because the U.S. does what the U.S. does. Exactly. All right, 2028. I don't think it spiraled out of control. I think this is exactly, it was on Discord. Yes. Okay, so Nepal 2026. Let's see what's going on there now. News. Nepal's election in March. Yes. So Balendra Shah's party has won in a landslide. And this was from March. This is the Prime Minister. Oh, he is a rapper. We're talking about Nepal for map. What happened in March after the color revolution attempt? Okay. So he is the party. This is the party of a rapper and a former mayor, Balendra Shah. It's this a two-system format. It makes it difficult for any one party to win outright, but it is the first time in decades a single party has garnered the majority of the vote in Nepal. His party won 882 seats in the 275-seat parliament. Okay. The Nepali Congress came in second with 38 seats, while the Communist Party of Nepal was third with 25. He's a fascist rapper. He's a fascist. He seems fashy vibes. So the communists in Nepal have roughly 10% of the parliament. We're going to look up the parliament, the politics of this party. I looked him up as well. This is him. He's 36. They've got a 36-year-old rapper. All right. Music career. YouTuber. YouTube rap battler. Yeah. A fapper, if you will. A fascist rapper. So in his campaign, he relied heavily on social media and podcast appearances. He emphasized anti-corruption measures, government transparency. Young voters liked him. What are his fucking politics? Oh, he wanted to clear squatter settlements and regulate street vending. People were injured in evictions. All right. So we don't have much about this party. Let's see what else we can find about them. What do they think? His politics are fuck bitches get money. I mean, it kind of seems like it. It's kind of like Spencer Pratt running for office out in LA is the vibe I'm getting. It's a centrist party, they say, here on Wiki. Ideology. Constitutional socialism, progressivism, secularism, pragmatism, liberal economy with a welfare state. They're SOCDEM and they're centrist. I like that Wikipedia accurately knows a SOCDEM is a centrist. The party is referred to as centrist liberal. Okay. Yes, the party adopted in June 2026 social democracy as its official political philosophy. They are SOCDEM, unironically. Oh my god. Okay. Centrist liberal. They are SOCDEMs. Yes. This is actually correct. Wikipedia actually has the correct political alignment for this party. I'm just surprised because I'm an American, so I'm used to being told psychopathic capitalists bombing children to death for cheap oil is somehow left-wing. Sorry. This is an American surprised moment that they're accurately describing this. So, alright, there's my timer to jump off soon. So here's my thoughts. Very obviously, the United States staged a color revolution in Nepal. That's what it looks like to me. We don't have proof of that, but it's like, come on, guys. Come on. We spent $1.7 million there, and then suddenly a bunch of teenagers on Discord wanted to overthrow their government, and they didn't have a plan, and then, not surprisingly, the government defended itself against revolution attempts. I'm not surprised by that. When anyone does it, it's... You know, even like when we talked about the news today, where it's like, okay, very obviously the government is mad that a guy in an anti-ICE protest shot a police officer. You have to expect the government's going to get mad about that. What I don't expect is getting a 30-year police sentence because you knew somebody who was at the event where that happened. Like, that's, you know what I mean? So certain things I feel like are to be expected and certain things aren't. Whether you agree with them or not, they're to be expected, right? So regardless of how you feel, it's to be expected that people fight back when people try to overthrow their government, that the government fights back. So, you know, it seems like that was probably a color revolution attempt to install a more pro-business government in Nepal, and it looks like it won. So now they've got this centrist government. So I'm going to say that they're definitely cucked. We don't use cucked anymore. Compromised. I feel like they are compromised. And I think that's pretty obvious. Does anybody have any reason for us to believe otherwise? We changed it to compromised. It's Pride Month, so we didn't want to unfairly alienate our kink community. Some Nepalese people had good intentions in this. Yes. So what Kairos Rev is saying is important for us to remember. Sometimes when protest movements break out, there are actual leftists who get involved. Like, we talked about this. There were communists who were like, there is corruption in our government. I would like to change it. In Ukraine, we know anarchists tried to join in the protests that happened in 2013, 2014 in Ukraine. They were promptly told to leave by Nazis with guns who called them communists and didn't care, right? Because they made it very clear, the Nazis, this is not a left-wing protest movement. You know, this happens. In Iran, there were Marxist-Leninists in Iran who were joining in the protest to overthrow the government. But the protesters made it very clear, hey, we're here with Mossad. This is not a left-wing movement. And this is something that will happen from time to time as well. You will see, like, I can imagine my org, anytime there's a mass movement, we want to be involved because we want to help shape the political consciousness of the masses involved in that movement. So your political org might get involved in protests or like mass movements of any kind, even if it's not necessarily the character of that movement, right? Oh yeah, you watched Thignarlet, you watched those? They're pretty wild, right? Your Oh My Dom videos from our resource doc, or just generally, because there's a lot more that that whole playlist of them is pretty wild. Yeah. Right. So the usual question becomes, how do you defend your revolution? The answer was to fall for Western propaganda. Yeah. Yep. So that's always something we should be aware of and think about, right? And the character of the protest quickly becomes emergent. It emerges. Who's in charge of the protest? Who's taking the dominant lead? And we saw, like, in Iran, the dominant lead in those protests was Mossad in the United States. That's how it ended up going. In Nepal, the dominant lead was capitalists, probably U.S. backed Yeah, U.S. Ned-backed color revolution attempts. How did China react to the Nepal protests? Probably just like we recognize people's sovereignty, if I had to guess. That's what China always does. They're just like, countries are sovereign. Our biggest thing is don't fuck with other countries. Let them cook. Let's see about China-Nepal news. So, let's see. They've got this Reuters article. Nepal's new Gen Z-inspired government places bets on China and India. There's him. He's the rapper. No, he's not. Never mind. He's the foreign minister, not the rapper. Thought it might be him. So Foreign Minister Wang Yi says China has always placed Nepal at the forefront of its neighborhood diplomacy. He reiterated Beijing's commitment to building up Nepal's infrastructure, highlighting cooperation in power generation, highways, ports, and aviations. Yeah. So Wang Yi, according to Eric Olander, co-founder of the China Global South Project, wants to make sure Nepal doesn't swing too far in the direction of either India or the U.S. That feels right. They just have a very measured, very normal, measured China approach. That's my guess. So let's mark this in. I don't have a lot of time about the DSA thing. If you come tomorrow, though, you can ask it during the 10-minute Q&A at the top of the stream, because I have to jump off. I have a real job, so I don't have time to do any more Q&A. I'm about to leave. But we'll fill in Nepal as compromised. I think that's fair. Maybe we could do... Yeah, I think they're compromised. But it is promising that 10% of their parliament is communist. I like that. That's good. That's pretty good. A communist rapper. We need a communist rapper. Do you think they're brat? Do you guys think they're brat? Because they have a 10%. Because they got 10% communists? We could make them brat. I'd be open to brat. Let's do brat. Because they are working a lot with China. You know, they do have the 10% communists in their parliament. Yeah, let's see what their relationships are with other communists. Let's see about that really fast. Let's see what DPRK is saying about these people. Oh my god. Oh my god. Mooney money in Nepal's politics. Why? Why is it a week of Moonies? Why? It's everywhere. Like, ugh. Leaked letters from Korea's Unification Church have revealed this extensive involvement in buying political and media influence worldwide, including links to Nepal's parties and politicians. I love Mortal Technique. I like Mortal Technique a lot. The letters and direct messages referenced in the investigation mentioned 3 former prime ministers: Madhav Kumar of Nepal, who has now joined the Nepali Communist Party; KP Ali of the Communist Party of Nepal, UML, Unified Marxist-Leninist; and former Maoist ideologue Baburam Bhattacharya. Oh my god. The Arab America! Or Oneida, the dish company, but in a pervy way. The documents detail financial support from the Unification Church to Nepal Paribar Dal of the Nepal Family Party and its founder Eknath Dakal, who was a staunch ally of the UML. Okay, so South Korea is trying to subvert the political power of communists in Nepal. Wow. Amazing. This is so cool. I'm going to say they're brat just for that. They're holding it down. It's South Korea doing Israel shit the weirdest fuck. Maurer says, yeah. This is crazy. It's everywhere. I can't escape it. I can't escape the Mooney thing now. It's everywhere. Oh, NK News said North Korea shuttered its embassy in Nepal. I think they're brat. I think they're brat just because we got the guys. I think I'm keeping them brat. We'll keep them brat for now. We'll see if it changes. All right, everybody. That's it. That's it. Chat. Brah. Let's take a look at who's on Tank Tube to send you to. Tank Tube. It's me. Get me out of there. Rob. Let's go to Rob. Everybody ready to go see Rob today? Let's do a raid of Rob. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. Tomorrow's Thursday. We're going to be reading Theory. If you had questions that didn't get answered today, come back tomorrow at the top of the stream, which is 9:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And we're going to be doing Theory tomorrow. So come with your best Theory Recs for us. It's going to be great. I love Theory days. And we're going to have a good one. We're going to have a good one. I believe in us. Yeah, I have to work a real job. I'm about to start my real job. I work from home, so I get some flexibility, but I can't push it too far, or I won't get anything done. Ah! Okay. Bye, everyone. We're still waiting. I said bye too soon. Now it's awkward. It's like when you're leaving somewhere, and you're going the same direction as the person, but you already said bye. It's like that. Okay, bye.